Hi friends, welcome back to my channel Cloud with Ravi. In today's session, we'll be seeing site-to-site peering, another scenario. In last sessions, we have seen virtual network peering, but it was within Azure Virtual Networks. So it is just like business peering connection between two Azure companies. So in today's session, we will see site-to-site peering with Azure network with a non-Azure network means it's a on-premise data center, which is not into Azure cloud. In earlier session, I forgot to tell you the few important things about virtual net peering. Let's see them today. If you see my screen, we can do virtual network peering within a region, between the VNets, within a region in Azure, or between the regions. And what are the use cases of VNet in real time? So, for example, if you are owning a different company, you want to merge it with your own company. So you are acquiring different company. So what are the cases we should consider for VNet peering? The first one would be the IP address ranges must not be overlap. For example, if the two devices are there, same with the same IP address or with the same names in two different companies, they can't communicate between themselves because there won't be two persons with the same name, right? I'm speaking, I'm Ravi in the company, Ravi Padri, and different company has another employee called Ravi Padri. So when the companies both combine together, when they start working, so if they want to communicate Ravi Padri, there will be a problem with communication, right? So message will go to two people, but not sure to whom. So in the same scenario, two IP address ranges should not match when you are doing VNet peering. So there should be different CIDR ranges, different IP addresses ranges. Then only we can do the VNet peering. And excuse me, VNet peering does not support transit. Okay, let me show it in the diagram. Okay. If you see my screen, this is one VNet. This is another VNet. This is another VNet. So if you're trying to do a VNet peering, you have established Z. Okay, so here you have established one VNet peering and here as well. This is V1, V2, V3. So when you do a VNet peering between V1 and V2, V1 and V2 can communicate between themselves. So all the devices from V1 can communicate with all the devices within VNet. And V2 has a peering with V3. So here V2 can communicate with all devices in V3 and V3 can communicate all devices with V2 as well. That doesn't mean V1 can communicate between V3 because these two has VNet peering. That doesn't make sense that they even V1 and V3 can connect. So this is called transit. But Azure doesn't support transit. If V1 has to communicate with V3, then there should be a separate VNet peering established between V1 and V3. Then only V1 can communicate with V3. So it does not support transit. So every other VNet should have their own communication between different VNets. That is the main point for peering. Okay, and let's check for the other one. Let me share the screen. Okay, and what are the benefits of this VNet peering? Using VNet peering, centralized firewall traffic management can be done, which we will see in further sessions, upcoming sessions, and centralized administration and sharing of resources between regions securely. When the VNet peering is done, it is not going through public. So private communication is done within the virtual networks. So these are the things which we need to consider, keep in mind while doing VNet peering. And in today's session, let's bring up another scenario of site-to-site communication, which is non-Azure on-premise data center to the Azure virtual network. Okay, so usually when we come to non-Azure, any on-premise data center, there will be a hardware router like Cisco devices, which are routing the information from their on-premises data center to the Azure. But in our case, we don't have a company or we don't have any Cisco devices, right? So we can do it using a software like eh, it like a soft device routing the data or which transfers the data, routes the data. So for that, what we should do, we should have a Windows server and we should enable routing services. Then it will become a router, a software router. So here, these are the things which we need to consider. First thing, in Azure VNets, we can have Windows server or Linux server, and we should have a separate gateway created for a virtual network, because while we create a virtual network gateway, which helps us to to establishing the connection, it should have a separate gateway subnet created. Then only we can create virtual network gateway. So in Azure network, we should have a VNet, two subnets, one for gateway subnet and one for virtual machine to be created subnet. And we should have virtual network gateway, and we should also create local network gateway. Local network gateway in Azure, it resembles the on-premise data center. Like all the information from here, we are entering the information in local network gateway. So when we come to Azure, it is like a on-premises data center. So using this virtual network gateway uses this information to communicate with the VNet resource in the Azure. So let's go ahead and start creating the lab environment. Let me share the screen, the lab. Okay, I guess you can see here. Let me first show you virtual networks. See, I have created two virtual networks. One is for client, which resembles online data center. So here what I'm doing, I am creating online data center in Azure itself, because we don't have any other resources where we can create the virtual machine to resemble the router outside Azure. So what I've done is I created a virtual network, and I will be deploying a Windows virtual machine in this, and I will make it as a router. In earlier session, if you have seen, I have done VNet peering from one VNet to another VNet. But here we are going to establish VNet peering without like, let me show it here. If you see here, from here VNet peering, we established a connection for communication. So now we are not doing this. because we are thinking this VNet as a on-premises data center. Without VNet peering, we need to establish a connection, site-to-site connection, so the communication can be done. So without this VNet peering option, we are going to create the connection now. And in VNet 1, if you see subnets, you can see gateway subnet. How are we going to create a gateway subnet? Let me show it to you. Let me use this VNet 2, which is of no use as of now. If I go and create gateway subnet, enter the information, click on save, and this will get create gateway subnet. So this is the way how I created VNet subnet. And after this, I have to create a virtual network gateway. Okay. Virtual network gateway. You can see for creating virtual network gateway itself, it takes some 20 to 30 minutes of time. So that is the reason I created a virtual network gateway already to save the time. Okay, I will show it to you how to create a virtual network gateway. So just click on create, give any name, test, select the region. The VNet 1 region, I used East US. You let it be VPN on route based. Here you can select the second and generation 2 virtual network. You can see virtual can be associated with virtual network. Okay, if you click on VNet 2, in my case, I have created VNet 1. In VNet 1, once you click on VNet 1 here, it will automatically show up the gateway which we created. Gateway subnet. Select that one and scroll it down. Give any public IP address name and just review and create. Once you click on review and create and then create, it will take 20 to 30 minutes for only creating virtual network gateway. Okay. Excuse me. So as I have already created a virtual network gateway, we can ignore this one. This is the gateway which I have created. Let me first, you can do one thing, like once you initiate this one, before that only you can create one virtual machine in this client VNet, which is a Windows machine. Let me show it to you that as well. Client VN, this is a Windows machine. Yeah, this is the public IP address. So because it takes 20 to 30 minutes for VNG to create, while it is creating, you can just install the routing services in this server. Let me show it to you how to do that. Okay. Okay, let me share the screen again. This is very interesting lab which you need to do. It will take time, but once you do the lab, you will be pretty much comfortable with this topic. Okay, click on yes. So this is the server which I created first. Let me to the go service, disable these two. Disable firewall. Okay. Okay. To dashboard, add roles and features. Next, next, next. So now we are trying to install the remote services. Check this remote access, click on next, next, next. Select routing, add feature. So both the VPN and routing will be selected. Next, 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 install. So we are installing routing services on this Windows machine, which acts as a router. This is a software device. When it comes to routing in data centers, it is done by Cisco. As we don't have a Cisco setup, we are doing this alternative setup. It will take some time. Okay. In the meantime, let me try to remote into Linux machine as well and try to install Nginx. I think you already know how to install Nginx on the machine. If you are not sure, go to my previous videos. Creating Linux machine on Azure, you can see there. Okay. While this installs, let me see if still installing. Okay, configuration required, installation succeeded. And okay, close this one. And if you see set window as well. Okay. So this notifications icon, you will see this. Okay, open this set of wizard. Okay, you can select here this configure remote access. We are install it and configuring the device now. Okay. Okay, let's right click on this client VM, configure enable routing access, click on next and select custom configuration. Next, LAN routing and select demand dial connection as well. Next, finish. Click on start service. Okay. Let me pull the public IP address of the Linux server on the other VNet. If you see, with public IP address, yes, we are able to browse. If connection is established, site to site connection is established, in that case, we should be able to get the same information with the private IP address as well. But if you see, we are not getting it. Ping um, hyphen T. Okay. So it keeps on pinging till this tab connection is established. Let it keep it aside for some time. Excuse me. Okay. Okay. Till it comes, let's create local network gateway as well. Let me share the screen. Okay. You see it here. You can see the description itself. Create a local network gateway to represent the on-premises site. So this is your on-premises data center. You want to connect to virtual network. Local network gateway specifies the public address of the VPN device and IP range located on the on-premises site. So create a VPN gateway connection between the virtual network gateway for the virtual network and local network gateway for the on-premises site. So virtual network VNG uses public IP address and the local network gateway to get communicate to establish a communication. Let's go and create it. Source group. We have this is the client one. Okay. Now where is not sure. Okay. Here we should enter the public IP address of our client virtual machine, client VM. The CIDR of complete address of client, which is the VNet it is using. Okay. Anything else we need to? Else. Yeah. Excuse me. It'll take a couple of minutes. Go while it gets deployed. Let's okay. So we have already. This is the on-site representation, client representation for Azure. Now let's go to virtual network gateway, open network gateway. If you see overview, connections, no connection is created, configuration. Okay.